Hello, folks, and welcome to Got Your Back. Happy New Year. First podcast of 2023. Hope you had a safe, happy, awesome New Year's celebration. Oilers, a couple of games over the weekend, including a 2-1 loss to the Winnipeg Jets on New Year's Eve. Struds and I are going to break that down in just a moment. First, a confession from me to you. Live streamed the podcast a little bit earlier on today, and when I live stream it like that, I have to do a separate record of the podcast so that I can then take that record and push it to YouTube and push it to our podcast platforms and stuff. I started live streaming before I started recording, so I missed like the first, couple minutes of the live stream this morning, and so there's going to be an edit in today's podcast. And you know, on Got Your Back, we hate editing. Right? We like it to be raw. We like it to be real, but I have no choice. So basically in a minute here, I'm going to basically jump to the portion of the live stream that I actually started recording, and it'll be really noticeable. And I'm not even going to try and hide it. I'm telling you that it's happening. Today's podcast brought to you by Mr. Dirk, is always our title sponsor. Just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. They're your one-stop shop for all your clothing needs. All of them. If you're a businessman needing to look sharp at your next meeting, if you want to sharpen up your look around the office, they got a wide selection of great suits, shirts, ties, shoes. Just picked up a new suit the other day. They make the process so darn easy over there. It's friendly, it's fun, it's a beautiful showroom. You just feel good when you're in that showroom over at Mr. Dirk. So highly recommend you go check it out. Tons of casual wear as well. Okay, today on the podcast, we are going to talk about the Oilers' 2-1 loss to the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to talk about the World Juniors. We're going to talk about the suggestion over the weekend about Jake McCabe as a potential trade target for the Edmonton Oilers. That'll be in our takeaways segment. And we're going to talk a little bit about New Year's as well. So this is where the edit is coming. I said, hey, Struddy, how are you? Good morning, all that stuff. We talked a little bit about New Year's, and I started recording right when Struds got to the tail end of what he was up to at New Year's. I can basically fill you in. It was nothing. A few friends over. Sounds like he got a little bit tipsy. Had a reasonably okay night. So here now is the tail end of that answer from Jason Strudwick, and then he transitions to asking me about mine, and I start complaining. So here, the first ever edit on Got Your Back.
Now, to be fair, I'd had a few drinks by this point, but I still can function. I wasn't like a blubbering mess, right? But so we made it to midnight, had our own countdown around 12:02. And then, that was it. What about you guys?
You know, it was pretty low key, man. Like, we had the Oiler game to go to, and I don't know what the heck. I do know what the heck was going on. They had the Ice District set up, and the big sort of festival downtown and everything. Yeah. What a freaking nightmare trying to get to that game the other night. Just an absolute train wreck. Almost didn't make it for puck drop. I tried to come up through downtown like I normally do. You couldn't get to the rink. Like, you could not get to the rink. I tried 3 separate routes and wasn't able to get there. And the one route was the fourth one I tried. Had to go like back around the rink, around the other side, come back up through. Anyway, that was kind of annoying, to be honest. But they had the new, the ice festival and stuff set up there at Ice District. Looked like people were having lots of fun. You had the Brett Kissel concert afterwards. So I guess police had to get things organized to keep everybody safe and to do that properly. But holy smokes, it was like, felt like I was in a video game trying to solve some sort of puzzle, breaking into the like evil guy's lair or something like that. And then got home after the game at like 25 minutes to 12. And, I don't know. When you have a game that night, it's just hard to make too big a deal of things, right? So Randine had a few people over, and it was pretty low key, man. It's just I don't know. I've never been a big New Year's guy. You? I've never been a big like, hey, let's rip it up and blaze into New Year.
No, it's different. Like our kids now, they're at the age they want to try to make it till midnight. So that obviously changes things. So they want to be there. So we do it, and then we had some stuff, some crackers, what are those things, those little party favors that go off. So it's pretty fun. I have to admit, I do enjoy it through the kids' eyes now. Yeah, I'm not a big New Year's Eve guy myself, but when you get the right port flowing around 8 p.m. Through till about 1, it makes it pretty good. And yesterday was slow, really slow.
Yeah.
It was a brutal day.
What's it like for an NHL player having a game on New Year's? Is it kind of do you look at the schedule and kind of go, you'd rather have it off, I'm sure.
No, not really. Like you know what? I used to. I remember one time we were playing. I was at the Canucks and we had a afternoon game in Nashville. It was like 2 p.m. game or 3 p.m. Let's say on New Year's Day, and we were staying in the hotel near the right beside. Well, at that time it was a Gaylord Arena,
Yep.
but it was and what. All the rooms are around and there's the big space in the middle, right? Where you can look down on what's going on. And there was a huge party down there and it was
Oh,
rocking like Nashville style. My roommate and I were Todd
yeah.
Bertuzzi. We couldn't fall asleep. I bet you we probably didn't fall asleep till 3 or 4 in the morning. And we both woke up like the grumpiest guys ever. And we made everyone else grumpy and we kicked the turds out of the Preds that day. Like we were just, someone was
You
going to pay
guys
for
went
our,
down. Come on.
no,
You
we
went
didn't. We
down.
didn't. We were
You
so
and
pissed.
Bert went down,
No,
had a few. Like,
I'm
what's
not
the
saying
big
we didn't
deal?
go.
What's the
Other
big deal?
times we did, but not that time. And I was so pissed, and he was so pissed. And we came and we got the rest of the team. We just beat the wheels off those guys. I'll never forget that night. I was so mad, like I was just steaming. So part of me was mad because I wasn't down there, but part of me was mad because I couldn't sleep. And then why did we choose this hotel on New Year's Eve? Like there's so many things
Right.
running through my mind. But anyway, so yeah, no, I didn't. I wasn't a New Year's guy. Even a lot of times with Oilers, he played 8 o'clock. By the time we got out of there, you just go have a quick drink, kiss your wife, and it was midnight. Like that was it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not big on it.
Hey,
But now that the kids are into it, I like it.
can I? You got any missing curfew stories? Any
No,
strutty stepping out, like getting a little outside the team rules? Anything like
no,
you ever get a fine? You ever have to
I never
miss a
did.
game? Like you never got into any trouble?
I never did. You know what?
None.
I didn't have the luxury of being able to wheel in at 4 in the morning on a game night like that. I can tell you my whole career, I never once went out the night before a game. I may have had a couple
Really?
beers, like yeah, not one time.
Good for you.
I could not. You know what? I just couldn't do it. I felt like I was like screwing over my teammates. Now
Oh.
after a game, that's different. That's when I shined. but the night before a game,
Post
no,
game.
yeah, post game. That's when I was elite. But not before the game. No.
Post game, that's when I was elite. I like that. I like that. And like, if everybody knows a guy did go out or miss curfew, or I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't even know how curfew worked. Was it a thing where like on different teams you played on, did different teams handle that stuff different? Like, would a guy be looked at funny, or is it sort of like, whatever? You just, if you can get
Uh,
away with it, get away with it. Just play well. Like, was it? And I don't
yeah.
expect you to name names, but were you in situations where it became problematic?
Well, I remember a guy that he liked to go to concerts, and he went to a concert, whatever you call it, like dance music, and he
Oh,
wouldn't
like
go
a
to bed till,
rave?
yeah, kind of, yeah,
Oh
he wouldn't go to
man,
bed till 6 or 7 in the morning, and then he'd come to practice, and he was awful.
what?
But the problem is you don't recover, like you don't recover. So let's say he went to the concert on Friday night, and then Saturday he'd come to practice. He was horrendous. Try to sleep all day Saturday, and by Sunday's game he was horrendous. And so I remember I had to talk to him and say, buddy, like this isn't working. Like
Yeah,
this just isn't working for us. Go to bed at like 2 or 3. Like going to bed at 6 or 7 is a lot different than 2 or 3. I'm
yeah.
not saying 2 or 3 is ideal, but 6 or 7, there's very little recovery. And this guy, so I did talk to him, and I don't know that he really listened to me, but at least I got it off my chest.
That must
Because
have
when it
been
starts
before Twitter.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, probably. But the thing is, like, I did. If a guy went out, I know as long as you came and you did your job and did your best, no problem,
Right.
and played well. But when it started to affect me, that's when I had a problem with it, right? And that's selfish, or the team. That's where I had a problem with it, and you could see it affecting the team.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine pictures of a guy at a rave coming out on
Yeah.
Twitter like the day of a game? So you're
Well, this,
playing the Islanders that night, and here's
yeah,
your D partner on Twitter with like a glow stick in his mouth or a
yeah.
soother, and just he's
Well,
at an
this guy,
actual rave.
this
Like, who
particular guy,
goes to a rave?
the way it got on my radar is that it's I don't want to say where, but I was at home at like 8 in the morning. It was a day off, and he'd gone to a concert, and he called me about 9 in the morning for a ride because he couldn't get home.
Oh
And I'm
man,
like, are you kidding me? And he was just buzzed, like he was completely gone. So I went and picked him up, and then I drove him home, and then I started
he
seeing a
got the
trend.
dad
Like
talk on the way home.
I
Did you just give
well,
it to
no,
him on the way home?
I waited, and but I was like, then I could see it a couple times. I've said, buddy,
You
did
waited,
this, some that. Like, I appreciate you called me, and I'm not
right?
going to talk to you about it, right? But we had the
Right.
talk. Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy, man. He hadn't slept, and that was a day off. Like it was crazy. He was so bad the next day. Like he may as well have been drunk on the ice.
Really?
I don't think it was just drunk. It was crazy. Yeah. Anyways.
So obviously someone younger than you. So you're sort of like parenting your way through that, right? I think about like what I told my teenagers when they were younger. Listen, if you ever need a ride, call me and I won't lecture you on the way home. And we'll sit down and we'll have a talk the next day. This is, 16 below drinking age.
Sure.
You just kind of want to lay it out there for them, right? Like, listen, don't go out and booze, but if you are ever in a jam, give me a call.
Yeah.
Was that like Uncle Struddy on the team too?
No, not usually, but this time it needed to be said. Like it was so because it was going to cost him his career, and in the end, it did. He went back and played in Europe. So,
oh, no kidding, eh? By the way,
it worked.
Douglas Stewart, 51, just chimed in and said, listening from Sweden. Wow.
Oh,
well, Douglas Stewart, welcome. Tough go against Canada the other day for your guys.
Yeah. Oh, did they come out firing?
Holy smokes, did they ever? We'll talk about the World Juniors here in a little bit. By the way, Finland, Sweden, one of the quarterfinals today at the World Juniors, so that should be lots of fun. But thank you, Douglas Stewart, for tuning in from Sweden. We're live streaming this morning. I don't know, how do you like live streaming? A little different.
Well, it doesn't really. I can't
edit you. Like if you screw up, that's it.
No,
I can't edit you like I normally do.
That's a pretty rare thing. That's like Beyonce putting on a bad concert.
Right. Yeah. You're the Beyonce of AM pod streaming. You are the Beyonce. Okay, well, listen, Oilers, couple games over the weekend. We did chat after the Seattle game, but we haven't had a chance to chat since the Winnipeg game. So let's get to a little Oiler talk and break it down. And that's brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. DLR Vinyl, supplying some of the nicest maintenance-free fencing and decking products out there. If you've got that wood fence or deck in your backyard and it's getting a little sketchy and you know it's going to be time for a change, give some serious thought to going maintenance-free with DLR Vinyl. No more sanding, no more staining, no more worrying about upkeep, and it looks fantastic the day it goes in, and it stays that way for decades afterwards. It's awesome product. I've got a bunch of it in my backyard. It's my brothers, Rick and Rob, their company. Rob runs the branch out in Calgary, Rick here in Edmonton. And it's just really high quality fencing. So think about it. Give them a call at DLR Vinyl Products. A 2-1 loss at the hands of the Winnipeg Jets. The very, very beat up Winnipeg Jets, Struddy. After the game, and maybe we'll just start with the Weiss Johnson soundbox because I want to build off of what Jay Woodcroft had to say. Couple of things we need to note. One, Oilers had a game the night before in Seattle, the 8 o'clock start at Mountain Time. Two, they ran into fog troubles when they got back and had to circle for about an hour before they could land. And so they definitely got to bed quite late. And Winnipeg came in somewhat fresh. Here's Jay Woodcroft as we go to the Weiss Johnson soundbox.
Thought our team played a heck of a hockey game tonight. I thought we were, nobody used any excuse about the time we arrived last night. Nobody talked about back-to-back or anything like that. I thought we asserted our game right off the bat. I think the shots were 9-1 early. We didn't give up much. I thought we spent most of the game in their end. In the end, we were unable to solve their penalty kill and their goaltender.
Your assessment of Jay's assessment, Struds?
I 100% agree with it. Honestly, I thought that the Oilers did everything right but score. And when you take out Draisaitl and Kane, although he's been out for a while now, off that power play, it's just not the same. I mean, that's a night where your power play should go 2 for 5, 3 for 5, whatever. And they aren't able to get it done. And so am I blaming the power play? Yes, I am. Yes, I am, because that is a situation where you're tired. You are tired. And make no mistake, this is not excuses. They are tired. They were tired back to back, the late night, all that stuff. But your power play is the area of the game that you need to get it done. You need to be able to get that at least one. So credit the PK of Winnipeg, credit Hellebuck, but the Oilers did everything but score and be good on the power play. What did you see?
Yeah. Well, and I'll just throw this comment in from Zwack23 on the Weiss Johnson Twitter mentions, was this considered a, quote, scheduled loss? No, I do not believe that those exist. So we can discuss that in a minute. But yeah, listen, I agree. I think I was watching that game thinking, man, these guys are actually working pretty hard. And I thought that they were trying their best to roll lines and keep everybody involved because of the game the night before. I thought that they were reasonably physical. They carried a lot of the play. The power play looked really disjointed. And I asked Jay Woodcroft about the power play after the game. And I mean, listen, they'd struck the night before without Draisaitl, right? They had some success the night before, but I thought in that game they looked a lot more disjointed than they did the previous game for whatever reason. So when you take that shooting threat away from that right side, think about that. How much the Oiler power play is geared towards misdirection, fired out that way, and boom, it's in, right? So much of their power play is geared towards that. Now, they have other plays and they work it around from other areas too, but so often those goals get finished off from over there, whether it's Draisaitl, whether it's net side over there, everything funnels over there. So without the main trigger man over there, it felt disjointed. And I thought they did not nearly as good a job of sort of varying it up in that game as they did in the Seattle game. And it was just really noticeable not having Draisaitl over there.
Well, Seattle's the worst penalty killing team.
Yes,
right, in Winnipeg.
Really good point, buddy. Good catch.
And I thought the point was well made on the broadcast that the length and the size of some of the penalty killers of Winnipeg, it makes a difference. It really does. It takes up more space. But how many times have we seen McDavid walk off that wall and walk towards the middle? And, he's waiting to slide it back to the back door, but it's either Yamamoto or Koskinen, and those two guys don't know the play, or they're not getting in position like Leon is. So now, after the first couple of times, the penalty kill, like, holy geez, he's not throwing it back there. So I'm going to honor McDavid. I'm going to stand in McDavid's way so he can't shoot it as he walks off it. So now that's not one, but two of your power play options are no longer there. And then you got to figure out the rest after that. So, it makes a big difference on having him there for sure. But it is not an excuse, but you got to find a way. You have 5 power play chances. You're a 30% power play team. You've got to get at least 1, and I would say 2. But credit Winnipeg, and I think credit their goalie.
You know what I didn't like? I didn't like when they tried to go to 2 right shot defensemen out there. They didn't like the look early, right? With the I think it was the first maybe 1 or 2 power plays. They didn't like the look early. And then so they threw out Bouchard and Barrie together, and it was messy. It was like neither guy, like you got to be ready to wire that thing. Like if you're having Bouchard, you're out there for a reason, right? And I think he wants to, but there were a couple times where it's like, yep, that's why you're there. Have at it. And even a few times 5-on-5, McDavid would put it on his stick, and it's like, be ready and let that thing rip. But it made enough of a difference without Draisaitl there that they were willing to get away from that fundamental, 1 defenseman, 4 forwards to try and grab something different, Struds. I didn't love that look. It felt even more disjointed.
Well, he told us, like Jay, I thought told us so much that night that when a guy changes the way that they're set up, he's not liking what he's seen. Same thing when he puts Clean Koskinen on the power play. That tells me that he thinks he's a more dangerous threat than every other person out there, right? Every other option, Fogle, Puljujarvi, McLeod, all those guys. And to be honest, Kleem is playing well, but that is what he's telling us. That you have to just read what he's saying, because that's what he's doing. So he thought his power play was so wasn't doing what he wanted. So he puts the 2 right defensemen. The problem with that is that unless you've worked at it before, unless you've practiced that before, it feels very weird. It's very odd, and you're like trying to figure it out on the fly. Like, okay, do I shoot? Do you shoot? Am I on this side? Am I the one-time side? Like everyone's messed up. And so it's very hard on the fly to practice something like that. They are NHL players, but there are systems that need to be practiced or not even systems, just pairings and groupings that need to be practiced. And I doubt they've had a lot of time with 2 right shot defensemen without Draisaitl and Leon or Draisaitl and Connor on the ice.
Woodcroft talked about a couple of breakdowns costing them, and so I'm not sure, did you take a close look at each of the goals? I took a quick peek at them this morning. So the one on the penalty kill felt like it was a bit of an easy entry into the zone, and then maybe Yamamoto and McLeod get a little bit mixed up on who's supposed to be where. I'm not sure if you took another look this morning, Struds. But then on the second goal, I think it might have been Zach Hyman who was a little too deep, allowed it was a great tip in front, and I don't even blame Campbell for that second one, but I think Hyman let a pass come across ice to his D-man way too easy. There was no reason for him not to be in that lane. So a couple little coverage things that create opportunities for Winnipeg. And when you're being goalied the way they were, I know it feels like you're getting lots of opportunity, and McDavid was buzzing and everything like that, but you still got to lock it down in your own end, and a couple of mistakes, just a couple coverage things were costly.
Yeah, I'll speak to the second goal. I think your point's well made about the not being in the passing lane, but the biggest thing for Hyman, he wasn't in the shooting lane, right? So that's a free shot.
Right.
It's a free shot. And then in front, Kulak.
But hang on a sec, though. Just let me argue with you for 1 sec. The puck was deflected back on net. I don't believe that shot was going to be on net if it wasn't tipped, because I'll have to take another look to see if Hyman was in the lane. But you know what I'm saying? How if you're in the lane and a guy needs to shoot wide, the puck's tipped back towards the net.
Well, I thought it was going to hit the net, because wasn't it going far left, and then he tipped it back to the right side.
You might be right, buddy. You might.
Well,
be right.
I'm second guessing myself now. To be honest, I didn't look at it again this morning.
Throwing doubt in your mind. I can look at it right now. Actually, I'll probably.
But so we'll agree to be patient on that one. But I'll go with the Kulak. When you're defending in front, and your eyes aren't up ice, his ass was up towards his ass was facing the shooter. That's always a bad look for a D-man. And he's tying up the body, but guess what? He doesn't tie up the stick. And you've got to tie up that stick, or just make it difficult for that forward to tip that puck in. Because if you look at it, Kyle Connors, he's doing a pretty good job keeping him between the puck, the outside of the like away from the net. Doesn't tie up his stick, and Kyle Connors like, no problem, man. I can still reach out there and tip it. He's got great hands. Yeah. So
he wasn't in the shooting lane, by the way. You were bang on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was coming right to left, and he wasn't quite in the shooting lane yet. And it's a really good play by a skilled player in front, though. That's a tough tip. You got a guy all over you, and you
really
still get a
tip.
stick. Yeah.
Really tough tip. But that is where, job number one on a point shot is to take sticks away. Yeah. Because you can see Campbell set to make that save. Then all of a sudden, so is it Campbell's fault? No, it's not. It is the D-man in front. Well, sorry, not being in the shooting lane. And then obviously the second piece would be the not tying up the stick.
Yeah. So Oilers 20-16-2 right now. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10 games. And they've got an important week here, right? They got Seattle, the New York Islanders, and Colorado. So the Seattle and Colorado games, I mean, these are wild card implications, right? Colorado's in and around that wild card mix, if you can believe that, the defending Cup champions. Oilers have had Seattle's number here, so that's a good matchup for them. And the New York Islanders will be hungry as well, because they're battling for a wild card spot over in the East as well. We'll get back to the Weiss Johnson Twitter mentions. I threw out a tweet before we were podcasting here just saying, hey, how do you feel about the Oilers' playoff chances? Can they get to the playoffs a better team than last year? And so as we go back to the Weiss Johnson Twitter mentions, we'll remind you that Weiss Johnson has you covered for all of your furnace and HVAC needs. They got a great deal going until the end of January. No GST on all garage heater installations. And if you're a business owner, remember, Weiss Johnson provides a wide range of services, commercial rooftop unit replacements and servicing, as well as plumbing and HVAC tenant improvements. You can set up a regular service and maintenance contract, so give them a shout. They'll come out, and they will give you a quote. Okay, so responses to that. Todd Van Berkel says they're getting a better deadline acquisition than 95% of teams out there with Kane returning. If they can find someone to give Nurse a bit of a break and make the Broberg-Bouchard pairing a thing of the future only, they'll be okay. Maybe get Campbell used to those new pads too. That's a great response. There's a few really good points in there. They're getting Evander Kane back. That'll be a huge bump to their lineup. Nurse definitely needs a bit of a break on the minutes, and with the D-man we know they're going to add, or we think they're going to try and add, it'll definitely do that. But the Broberg-Bouchard pairing a thing of the future. I think that's a really good point, Struds, because they're trying it and they want it to work. And on a lot of nights it is working, but that feels like a bit of a down the road thing. You know what I mean? Those two less experienced guys being together.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it should be a great pairing, right? They bring a lot of different skills to the lineup, including skating, vision, passing, shooting, all that stuff. Like in theory, is really, really positive. But it's not right now. Like right now it feels a little bit premature to be going into the playoffs with two very young defensemen as your third pair. Or I guess second, whatever you want to call it. I guess it'd be the third pair. But the challenge for Ken Holland and for, quite frankly, the Oilers is that you've got to continue to develop. And I'm very much a development guy. You guys know how I feel. I don't want to get into this whole conversation now, but you do have to be positioning yourself to win right now, right? And so another D-man's required for sure. But if they get the other D-men, that means Broberg's out, and then he's not developing, right?
Yeah.
He probably goes back to the minors. So, man, it's tough. I'm growing very fond of Broberg. I really think that he's a guy that I want to see in this organization for longer term. And Bouchard he's not having the year he wants. Something's amiss. So it's tough, man. It's a tough situation. Developing on the fly is not ideal for a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations.
Well, and that's not where this team is at, right? I mean, you need to have good players on entry-level contracts that are contributing, but you also need to be able to compete against the really, really good teams. And we won't get into the Chychrun thing. We are gonna talk about Jake McCabe here because it was brought up by Friedge over the weekend. So we'll talk about that in our next segment here real quick. But yeah, you want to be a Final Four team. You want to push through to a Stanley Cup final, and having young players developing in critical positions, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Young players on the periphery, chipping in where they can, but insulated by other veterans. That's more the ideal formula for me anyways, for a Stanley Cup contending team. And even in that third pairing on the left side, that's still for a young guy. And I think that's why they're going to try and upgrade there. Maltesers says, I still believe they're a top 2 team in the Pacific by the end of the year. Dry and Kane coming back will be huge down the stretch. Home record needs to improve. It's been unacceptable this year. And Jay Woodcroft actually did talk about that after the game, said, they do feel they've let some get away from them on home ice. Games that they had within their grasp, and they'll look to try and buckle down. All right, that was the breakdown brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Have you been checking out much of the World Junior study?
Oh yeah, I love it. After calling the games this summer for Canada, I really enjoyed it. I mean, you see a lot of same kids, especially on Canada. So yeah, it's been fun. And I love that Canada lost that first game. That's good for.
It was so good to get punched in the face like that. Hey.
But it's good for hockey. Seeing Slovakia play well, Czechia play well, Switzerland play well. You need more than whatever number of teams, especially with Russia out, right? With Russia, no Russia. So it's a great thing. That's a great thing for world hockey, not just World Juniors or just Canada. Yeah, no, I agree. So the quarterfinal set to go today, you got Finland, Sweden, Czechia, Switzerland, USA, Germany, and Canada, Slovakia. Since that loss, when you look at what Canada's been able to do, the amount of offense that they've been able to push out, they've blown the doors off. I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? I thought I had it. 27-3. They've outscored their opponents since that for that opening game loss. And people go, wow, it's Austria. Wow, it's Germany. Well, that was Sweden. They laid a thumping on Sweden, another team that, one of the higher end teams that's a gold medal candidate coming into this tournament. So you would trade, the risk of a tougher quarterfinal matchup and a first game loss. You would trade that to find your game the way it caused Canada to find its game, wouldn't you, Struds? Yeah, I think so. I think it's just. Shane O'Brien made an interesting tweet, a former NHLer. He said, after that first game, it's basically, in a nutshell, he said it's time to park the Michigan and just play straight line hockey, right? Yep. And Canada hockey. And it was funny, though. It was received poorly by some and others supported it. But this is my opinion. When you're looking at a situation with, if you're coming out and you're trying to put on a show, that's not playing. You're not bringing the right mentality to your game.
Welcome to the extravaganza where the skill is endless. It's like, that's right. No, just dig in. And if the opportunity presents itself, fine. But this is not a skill extravaganza.
That's exactly it. It's the mindset. It's not the Michigan itself. It's the mindset that you're going to choose to try to do it twice. I think it was in the first. But then
you sound like a dinosaur. You sound all old and grumpy. And I know O'Neill said something on the panel that day, and I listened to it, and I completely agreed, because it's not about trying to pick the puck up and put it in, right? That's not what it is. These guys are skilled and they can do it. But I agree with you, Struds. In order to try that, you do need to be in a little bit of a mindset where you're, thinking that way a little bit instead of straight lines and meat and potatoes, which you're trying to find. Meat and potatoes early in a tournament, right? So I agree. It's like the mindset was a little bit off to have that front of mind.
100%.
But we're dinosaurs. We're
And I
ancient.
see. I don't think. I mean, that's just if it be winning, winning hockey's dinosaur, then I'm happy to be a dinosaur, because there are certain realities in hockey. You need to forecheck hard. You need to be on the puck and get to the blue paint. Those are kind of three things, and then everything else is out there. Like, so when we talk about the Michigan isn't the problem. It's the idea of doing it, and then that's what I think slows it down. And so they got kicked in the nuts, and then they're like, oh boy, this is actually gonna be harder than we thought. And now they've doubled down. Now they're going after it. But like I said, I'll double down on it. It is so important for teams like Slovakia or Czech to win games against Canada or USA, or those are huge moments for hockey. Huge moments and very positive ones.
Going to be an interesting quarterfinal day today. Canada, by the way, in action on TSN, Business Daddy, at 4 o'clock Mountain Time today. And then, of course, Finland, Sweden, Czech, Switzerland, USA, and Germany. Going to be a day filled with World Junior Hockey. Okay, last segment today is the breakdown, and that is we've already done the breakdown. Come on, Ryan, wake up.
Sloppy.
Yeah, I know. No, we're doing takeaways now. And that, of course, is brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC. Didn't even notice I snuck the logo in above your head there.
I see that.
You see that?
I
Was
did
that
see
nice,
that.
smooth transition? It's a
did
good-looking logo at Sherwood Buick GMC, too, eh? Like, nice and clean.
Old.
Nice and tight, just kind of old school. Yes. Just boom, though. And Sherwood is nice and bright. Mr. Dirk's got a nice one, too, there. Anyways, the number one GMC dealership in all of Canada for 5 years running. The all-new redesigned Sierra 1500 is fantastic. I have one myself, and the Denali Ultimate is regarded as the most advanced and luxurious in its class. Sherwood Buick GMC also has inventory, so if the new year has come and you've decided this is the year to get my truck, and last year was the year that I got my truck, I was so happy with it. Go see the crew at Sherwood Buick GMC. We got to get you into one, Struddy. We got to get you into an old GMC, get you switched over, buds.
Been riding a bike. I just ride a bike now.
Yeah.
So maybe
legendary quads.
Maybe get a new bike or a new bike, a truck in the new year here.
Well, you make your way all the way out to Sherwood Park here. It's not that far. I'll buy you lunch. We'll go for lunch with Phil, and then we'll get you into something suitable for a man of your stature. The Denali Ultimate. It's got you written all over
Classy.
it. Okay, Elliot Friedman brought up Jake McCabe over the weekend, and we're always open to ideas and suggestions and discussion points. So we've talked about Gavrikov. We have talked about Carlson. We have talked about Orlov. We had talked about Edmondson. We had talked about anybody else I'm missing? A bunch of people.
Sure.
Jake McCabe is brought up, and he's an interesting name. And here's why I'm I think, if Elliot says it, obviously there's something to it. But the Oilers have had interest in this player in the past. I know that for a fact. They've liked Jake McCabe for a while, and there have been other opportunities where they've definitely sniffed around. So some sense to it from my standpoint, Struddy. What do you think of the player?
I think Jake, in theory, he's the right guy. A couple things I like about him. I like that he has a couple of years left on his deal. If you're going to send out a first rounder following the Tampa Bay model, you're getting a guy that you're going to have for a little while, right? So it solves a problem, not short term, but long term. Or not sure, it's not solving a problem, but it fills a need longer term than just, for a short, for the rest of the year. So I like that. He defends well. He blocks shots, which I think is something that the Oilers miss. He's pretty physical. On the drawbacks, he's not the biggest guy. I would like to see a bigger. I think. Yeah, so not small, but again, you go back to what we saw with Winnipeg. There's some huge forwards that kill penalties. With Lowry and company. So I would like to see a bigger guy like 6'3", 6'4" come in. So now you've kind of got Cece and Nurse. Bouchard's a pretty big guy. Tyson isn't, but he's pretty cute. But then you have the bigger guy, right? You put in but you can't have everything, right? That's the thing. It's not all perfect. So I like the idea. In theory, I really like the idea of him, and he's actually having a pretty good year on a very poor Blackhawk team.
So let's talk about the fundamental difference between a rental and a player with contract left. You're going to pay more for a player that has contract left, but you get a few kicks at it, right? So you get 3 playoffs out of a guy. Same thing, with Edmondson, you would get 2. I think that there's a certain amount of risk. If you want to put a first round pick in play, and I don't know if they'd have to for all these guys or not, let's just say a significant asset. If you want to put a significant asset in play and it's for a rental, you're one bad blocked shot away from literally having just fired that pick into the sun for nothing. You're one injury away when all you get is one playoff with a guy. I think the Oilers are going to be cautious about going the route of the rental for that reason. I think Ken Holland is cautious to move out high-end assets to begin with, but for a crack at 1 year where you're one injury away from getting nothing. So Chychrun, by the way, that's the name I forgot to mention before. So Chychrun, for example, you got multiple years left after this year. So if it doesn't work out this year and maybe he's not the absolute perfect fit, well, you got him for a couple more years. So shape the blue line around him a little bit because you can in the coming years. That's the thing about McCabe is you've got a few cracks at it with him. And I just think fundamentally the Oilers are going to lean towards a hockey deal and a player with contract because it's too big a risk to put a high-end asset in play hoping a guy can stay healthy trade deadline in.
I 100% agree with you. The one challenge, though, is if you're bringing in a guy with term, and I didn't mention the other day, and I felt I made a mistake.
Okay.
But now you'd have 3 left shot defensemen with term, and that blocks out Broberg. Yep. Where's the upward movement for Broberg? Now, you could say play on the other side, but on the other side, you have Barrie with term, and CC and Bouchard. So there's
talking Chychrun. Like when we were discussing Chychrun, you felt like we should have brought that up because of the term. So, he's got left.
So you'd have 6 defensemen all on like one-way contracts that are jamming it up. And so where does Broberg go? Where does he move up? Where is it for him when he goes to bed and he's like, oh, I got a chance to play tonight, or I got a chance to play. There is no chance to play because who are you taking out?
Okay, so pause there and I'll give you an answer.
Yeah.
For the playoffs, you don't worry about that because you're not worried about Broberg these playoffs.
I'm talking after this year.
You've got Barrie and you've got Bouchard. You don't need them both. So you move one.
You think that's, and then he plays on the other side.
Broberg can play the other side. McCabe can play the other side. Then you kind of sort it out after the fact. You know, the chance to add, like let's say Chychrun. Let's say he keeps playing reasonably well for the rest of this season, and let's say this is roughly what he is. That's a $7 million defenseman. Like that is, if his contract were up, if he's a 55-point defenseman, whatever, he's like 7 or more, and you're getting him at 4.6. Stanley Cup championship teams need good players on good contracts to play important roles in their lineup. And when you have a chance to add $7 million worth of value for 4.6 and a bunch of assets that aren't necessarily going to help you win a cup in the next 3 years, I just think that that's why they maybe need to consider it a little bit more, given how well he's been playing lately. So, sorry, we've gone from McCabe over to Chychrun, but point is it might not be the perfect fit for exactly what you need right now, but when you're getting a guy at a bargain, you can move other crap around. You can figure it out around him.
No, I get that, but I think you just have to keep in mind that Broberg needs a chance to play somewhere. Like you got to keep that open. So, and I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about after the year, after this, and he's sitting there and he's looking. He's like, "There's 6 guys in front of me that are not going to get healthy scratched. Where do I go? Yeah. Where's my spot?" So you're right. Your option is you can move out Barrie or Bouchard, I guess, at some point, or Broberg's in the deal to make the move.
Yep,
and depends on how the organization feels about Broberg, right? That's the reality. And I'm not wild about trading young defensemen, but you have to just keep that in mind. You have to be sensitive to it because otherwise he's like, well, where's my place? Where's my place?
Yeah, what am I doing? Well, would you be more apt to trade Broberg or Holloway at this point if you were the Oilers? Like let's say you're doing a deal with Arizona and it's Chychrun.
Oh my God!
And they're asking you for one or the other, right? What do you think?
God, that is
this
hard.
This kills man. You. You're such a development guy. This kills you. You're not comfortable with this line of questioning, Your Honor.
I'm very. Oh my God!
I just want to keep them all.
I do because I do love big. They're both big. They both skate. Good people. Like these guys are going to be long-time NHLers. I really believe that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're good young players.
Oh my God!
Can't have them all, Struddy. Can't have your cake and eat it too. Something's got to go. So this year's first. You're saying Broberg?
I'll trade Broberg. I think Holloway is going to be a power forward. He's going to play 10 years and score you like 250 goals. You know what I mean? Like he's just that guy. Oh, that hurts. So that really hurts to say that. I don't want to give up either one. I'd rather trade and maybe Reed Schaefer. And I'm not saying because I don't like Reed, but I just see the way these guys skate. That's the way the game's going. They move so well. I'd say Broberg. What about you?
I think the Oilers are in a 3-year window here where they need to win. Mm-hmm. And I think that between the two of them, Broberg has a better chance to contribute to winning in the next 3 years than Holloway does. I think Holloway is a few years away from contributing in the way you're suggesting he's going to contribute. Yeah. The other thing is if you trade Holloway, you've got Bourgault and you've got Schaefer, you've got good, reasonably high-end young prospects in the organization. The Oilers have already moved Samorukov. Niemelainen is panning out nicely here for them, but I think you get a little thin organizationally if you move out Philip Broberg. Yeah. So I think it's less about the player versus player and more about where the organization is sitting. I think the Oilers need to try and get Connor McDavid a Stanley Cup here in the next 3 years. If Connor McDavid wins a Stanley Cup at Edmonton, it'll be, you could argue, the greatest thing he'll ever accomplish in his career. Bringing a Stanley Cup to a Canadian team, holy snap, right? And if you climb that mountain with him in the next few years, the chances of him sticking around and wanting to play it out here, I think it all just increases. I think it all just goes up. And I think you need to give yourself the absolute best opportunity you can to climb the mountain with those two here. And they're in a crazy window. These players are telling you, and they told you in the playoffs last year, they're capable of superhuman things in the playoffs. Right. That's what they've told you. So you got to listen to that. And you got to, in the next 3 years here, try and give them every opportunity. And I think at times the Oilers are thinking 4 or 5 years out. I would narrow that down to 2 or 3 if I were them. In terms of worrying about asset management, I'd be worried about the next 2 to 3 years in this window before those contracts are starting to be up, and I'd get her done. So my thought process has changed a little bit on how aggressive they should be in adding the very clear, significant piece that they're missing right now. 2 to 3 year window. If you're thinking outside of that, I think you're thinking too long term.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, there's lots to go through there. I mean, but I hear what you're saying. I guess I understand it, but if you feel that one player is better than the other, I don't think you can go organizational depth.
Right.
You have to go with the
player
asset
you value. Yeah.
Who do we think is our best? Of the two, and I have no idea. I have no idea what Ken Holland thinks. Who he thinks better of the two are long term. But if you feel like I said, if Holloway's at 10-year, 250 goal man for the Oilers, it's pretty hard to give that up.
Yeah, it's a good player. But, I mean, Evander Kane signed long-term. Zach Hyman signed long-term. Yeah. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is signed long-term. Right. They like Ryan McLeod. There's a stack up of guys that shoot left that are either going to play on the left wing or in the top 6. Right. There's a stack up of guys there, right?
We need depth, right? Look at Tampa. They had depth through their lineup, man.
Yeah, but you need it on the blue line too, though. You need
you do. That's why I trade Broberg.
Well, we just did a completely separate podcast. We got to say it. We'll save that one for another day. It's a great topic. Yeah. By the way, last thought on Jake McCabe here. Lots of things about his game that I think you like, and the defensive nature of it. You pointed out not the biggest guy. 0 games of playoff experience. Absolutely zilch. 29 years of age and has never been to the postseason. I'm looking back. Even University of Wisconsin never made the playoffs. He's got 0 here of playoff experience. And so if you're eyeballing him versus someone like, say, Edmondson, right? Yeah. You got a guy that's been there before, that's won there before, and whose best performances in his career have come in the postseason. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not sure where the Oilers would prioritize that. But I think when you're getting a guy for the playoffs specifically, makes some sense if he has some experience there.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good point. And you got to learn on the fly. I guess you'd have to learn on the fly at 29 years old.
29 years old. I'm sure he'd be fine. Yeah. But something to be said for having been there before. There's the music, Struddy. You like I subtly brought that in?
I love it. Keep our Monday morning going.
Yeah, let's keep her going. Full production value here on the pod. Okay, pal, I appreciate this. What's the rest of the day look like for Jason Strudwick?
No school for the kids, so we're going to be busy. I'd like to go to the Royal Museum today, but it's closed.
Oh.
For holiday Monday. Yeah, rude.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I think probably a little swimming, stuff like that. Nothing
Nice.
too crazy.
Enjoy the kids. By the way, the 6-month buildup about your backdrop, way overblown. Like,
it's worth it.
No, buddy. Like it's okay, but we got to do something with the lighting. We got to do, I don't know. Your head is right in the middle of the middle picture, so like you can't really see it.
It's beautiful. I have 3 icons. 3 icons.
Well, I only see 2 of them and a giant buffalo head. That's all I can see right now. 2 icons and a big head.
On top of a big body.
All right, pal. Have yourself an awesome day. We'll check in. We'll probably check in after Tuesday's game. So have a good one. We'll see you then.
See you guys then.
All right, Struddy. All right, folks. That'll wrap up the podcast today. The live stream as wrong page. There we go. Thanks for tuning in here if you are with us on the live stream. One last comment. Josh Manson, have much playoff experience before last year? ? Strong point by you. Love it. That was Shane that sent that in to us. Thanks for tuning into the live stream. Big thanks to our sponsors, Mr. Dirk, Sherwood Buick GMC, DLR Vinyl Products, and of course our good friends over at Weiss Johnson as well. Oilers in action tomorrow against Seattle, Thursday against the Islanders, and on the weekend against the Colorado Avalanche. So we got lots of pods coming your way, folks. Thanks for your downloads and your subs. Have yourselves an awesome Monday and Happy New Year.